Julia, welcome back to my channel. Today's video was another one of my 1 a.m. ideas, so you know it's either going to be brilliant or absolutely crackheaded. In this video, I wanted to talk about my problematic faves. These are products in my collection that I love. I genuinely love the quality of, like, they're good products, but there's something about them that makes them kind of problematic for me to love. Whether it's a complexion product that I love on my face but has such a bad shade range that I feel bad recommending it on my channel, or a palette with a controversial backstory, I wanted to go through my products in my collection that are just a little bit more complicated than the rest of them. Kind of a niche video idea, I don't know, I hope it somewhat makes sense. The full details of this look should already be on Instagram. And no, I did not dye my hair back to black, this is a fake ponytail. Today is washing day and my roots were just not having it, so we're hitting an Ariana Grande note.
Why y'all got to lie? I just hit an Ariana Grande note, bitch.
Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's not to be taken too seriously, but we've all got some problematic faves, and better that they're makeup than actual people.
Ladies and gentlemen, the volume inside of this bus is astronomical.
Imagine standing Alright, I'm going to start off with the palette that I'm wearing on my eyes right now because this is one of my favorite palettes in my collection, but literally every time I ever bring it up in a video, there's inevitably going to be a comment telling me like, hey, have you checked that palette for mold? Have you heard about all the problems with this palette? So I want to talk about it now. That's the Melt Gemini palette. The Melt Gemini palette was my first ever foray into trying out Melt, and I'm glad this was the first thing I tried because it truly introduced me to one of my favorite brands. So I'm wearing all these shades here on my eyes right now in today's eye look, and this is by far one of my favorite formulas in my collection, one of my favorite color stories. I just genuinely love this palette a lot. Honestly, I have not had any problems with this one. I've owned this palette for almost over a year at this point. There's been like a lot of controversy with how Melt has handled a lot of their quality control issues, so not only have people had problems with their Gemini palette, and maybe other palettes, but I believe the Gemini is the biggest culprit, getting like actual mold spores in it, which disgusting! Shadows are incredibly like soft and kind of a creamy, almost like wet texture, which is crazy. They definitely do have a lot of dimethicone in them. Just by the chemical formulation of these ones, I could see how if they were stored in a more humid environment, that could be a conducive environment to growing like actual mold and bacteria inside the eyeshadows. So I definitely do think it's all about like where you live, which I guess you can't really control, but also the environment that you store your palette in. I live in California. We are a desert, basically. There are some more humid areas of California, but I live in Southern California in Orange counties, which is pretty dry and arid, like very low humidity percentage. I also store my palettes in a pretty well insulated dark area. So if you do live in a humid environment and you want to combat like mold growing in not just this palette but pretty much any palette, I've heard people using like a dehumidifier, so something that sucks the moisture out of your room, and that can work really well. But yeah, this palette does have quite a bit of controversy around like how it ages. Personally for me, I haven't had any problems, but that does give me a little bit of a pause whenever I recommend this palette, because if you do live in a more humid environment, you might be spending like, I think this is like $50 something on a palette that might go bad quickly. Even though I love this palette and I genuinely love how it performs, I don't want to just be recommending stuff that's not going to work for everybody for that reason. And also another quality control issue that Melt has is their shadows shattering really easily. For me, two shades in this palette, Golds and Gemini, the two shimmers, did come shattered, but I was able to press them back in. But because Melt's formula is so soft and buttery, which is in my opinion what makes it so special, it can break really easily. So they've had a lot of problems with shipping as well, and that's why I would say if you can buy it in stores, I would go for the Melt palettes in stores. And because the mold thing is such a big problem, and a very severe problem at that, it's definitely something that does pop back into my mind whenever I use this one. I've been trying to dip my toes into Korean beauty lately, and one of the most recommended products to me when I asked you guys what your Korean beauty faves was the Misha BB cream. So this is the Misha Perfect Cover BB cream. The regular one comes in a red bottle, but I have this limited edition packaging and I am in the shade number 21. This is absolutely beautiful on the skin. It's a really natural looking, lightweight, I would say like light to medium coverage layer. Like I'm always expecting tinted moisturizer coverage when I put on a BB cream, and then I'm shocked when it actually performs like a foundation would. So they do tend to be one of my favorite things to go for like a nice dewy, natural looking complexion base. I actually think this looks fairly similar to the By Beauty Changemaker foundation on the skin. Korean beauty in general is not really known for being very inclusive, and the argument could be made that like most people in Korea do fall under a certain shade spectrum, but there are darker skinned people in Korea and in the outside of the world, and they're not just selling in Korea anymore, so I think that's something they should consider. But regardless of that, the fact that this product, even though I love how it looks on my skin and love how it lasts, I love everything about this complexion product, except for the shade range, the fact that it has a poor shade range makes me not want to speak so highly of it and recommend it so much on my channel, because I believe like a huge swath of my audience won't be able to try out this product because of the shade range. So yeah, especially because this product is getting a lot more attention outside of the K-beauty market, I definitely think that they should adjust their shade range to accommodate that. And until they do that, it just gives me pause to actually recommend this on my channel when I know a bunch of my people are not going to be able to use it. You know your shade range is bad when Ariana Grande probably couldn't use it. The Huda Beauty Overachiever Concealer. I'm wearing this on my under eyes right now, and this is a really nice concealer. I don't tend to love like squeezy tube concealers like this, but this is a beautiful formula. It's really very full coverage, but I feel like it doesn't look cakey and gross. So I love how this one looks on the under eyes, very like an airbrushed look. I'm in the shade Cotton Candy. I think it's a pretty decent shade range as well. The reason that this one falls under the problematic category for me is the heavy scent. I'm not somebody who thinks that fragrance in complexion products or skincare is the devil. However, Huda Beauty's complexion products take fragrance to a whole new level. This is not just like a scented concealer, it's like a perfumed concealer. It has a really potent, almost like kind of floral scent to it, very similar to the scent of the Huda Beauty Faux Filter foundation, which I had to stop using because I loved that foundation, how it looked on my skin, but the perfumey scent was so strong that it lingered on my face throughout the day, gave me headaches, and also I feel like broke me out as well. This, because it's a concealer and you're not using it like all over your face, I don't feel like you can smell the scent throughout the day, which is nice. But I do think if you have a more sensitive nose than I do, this is going to be a huge problem. And just in general, if anything is like this legitimately perfumey to a point where I don't even have to like stick my nose up close to it to smell it. Like I can smell the perfume right now. I think the scent is actually really nice, and I would love to wear it as a perfume on my body. I know Huda Beauty does have a perfume line, and I think that they have this scent in perfume. So I don't really understand why they can't just relegate that to perfume and then not put it into the makeup products, especially the stuff that's going on your face. But yeah. Well, the first thing I thought about when I was planning out this video, these palettes wouldn't have survived so many declutters if I didn't genuinely believe that they're really good pieces of makeup, and I do enjoy using them. So the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette, this is my original one from the original launch, and this is somewhat problematic for so many reasons because A, you can't really get it like this anymore. They did change the formula, so I can't really recommend anymore that you get this palette, which is an amazing formula and genuinely like one of my favorite palettes in my collection, because you can't get this formula anymore because they changed it. I do love this palette. I do still use it a lot. I probably would not purchase another product from Jaclyn Hill ever again. So this palette, the one that I'm holding in my hands, is really good, and I wish that I could still recommend this palette, but because you can't buy this formula anymore, I can't really do that. And then my James Charles palette, of course, this is still available in this formula, and I still think this is an amazing palette, so I still recommend this one because I really love this palette a lot. Why am I mentioning this palette in this video? Just because whenever I do bring it up on my channel, whenever I do recommend it, I inevitably get a comment like, why do you still recommend that palette? Because I stand behind my review of it, and I still think it's a really good palette. James is not a perfect person and not even somebody that I enjoy watching anymore, but I do think that he has been like staying in his lane a lot since last year. I don't like to talk about drama a lot on my channel, but I am keeping up with it. I do like to pay attention to what goes on in my community, just so I'm not blindly coming at you guys. I also really don't love the kind of cash grabby thing they did with coming out with a mini version of this palette, which was literally just like a shrunken down version of this palette. I think they could have done something to give customers their money's worth out of buying a mini palette rather than just like regurgitating the same thing. And just in general, I would have to see changes in the way that Morphe conducts themselves as a business to start buying their products again. Although I haven't really been interested in anything that Morphe has come out with over the past couple months. That's kind of just where I stand with the brand right now. Also, I would like them to stop emailing me because I don't want to join their affiliate team. Speaking of disagreeing how people conduct themselves as a business, Sunday Riley. Sunday Riley is a high-end / luxury skincare brand at Sephora, and last year it came out they were forging Sephora reviews, which is fraud. Basically, Sunday Riley was paying her employees to write reviews of the products to basically give 5-star, to basically boost up the reviews and gives 5 stars to their products on Sephora, which I saw some people being like, it doesn't really matter, like who actually cares about that? Personally for me, I can very much be swayed into spending my money on a product if I see it has a good rating on Sephora. I trust other beauty enthusiasts when I'm purchasing things, and especially with like really expensive skincare, I would want it to work and I would want those reviews to be authentic and after thoroughly testing out the product. So I really think that's not a good thing that Sunday Riley did as a brand. That being said, their skincare really works really well for me. So in particular, my favorite product from them is the Good Genes Lactic Acid Treatment. It's just a really good, it's a gentle exfoliating serum that I feel like just makes my skin look so beautiful and glowy, and basically is a facial in a bottle for me. I also really enjoyed the Luna Sleeping Oil and the UFO oil, and just in general, Sunday Riley's formulations I feel like are very high quality and work really well for me. I love the serum so much. It's just going to be a little bit of a complicated feeling when I have to go rebuy it. Ooh. The Bite Beauty Agave Lip Mask. I'm a lip balm enthusiast, let's go with that word, instead of like obsessor. And Bite Beauty recently pulled all their products from the market and reformulated everything to be vegan, which I think is amazing. So they reformulated all their products, and most prominently they reformulated their Agave Lip Mask, which had, I believe, lanolin in it, which is a derivative of sheep wool. So this is my old formulation, but they brought it back with a new formulation. Dude, it sucks. I'm sorry. It's just not as good anymore. And I don't have it, obviously. My friend let me test hers out because she like told me, she's like, I'm gonna buy the Agave Lip Mask because you're always recommending it. She bought it. And I was like, you know what? Could I try it? Because I haven't tried the vegan formula yet. It's just not the same. It's just not good. So I'm gonna finish up my Agave Lip Masks and then I'm going to use other lip balms. Plenty of fish in the sea. I really am interested in trying out the Summer Fridays lip mask. I don't know where I was gonna go with that tangent, but I have no will nor strength to talk about the Agave Lip Mask anymore. Another disappointing shade range is the First Aid Beauty Hello Fab Bendy Avocado Concealer. This formula is bomb. Like, this is everything that I wanted the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer to be, but it's actually like not cakey and not mediocre. This truly does bend with my under eyes, so it's one of the few like more hydrating, like slightly dewier concealers that doesn't crease up throughout the day because it moves around quite a bit. This looks amazing on the under eyes and I love this concealer formula a lot. But like the Misha BB Cream, the shade range is egregious. So although I'm lucky enough to have a shade in this range, most people will not. I don't know if they've since extended the shade range, but when they first came out with it, I believe it was 6 original shades. So again, it's like another product that I really love the formula of, but I just like, it gives me a little pause to recommend it in videos just because I know a lot of people who watch me won't be able to get it. I have similar feelings about the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. This is a product that has been out for a very, very long time. And I feel like this is a product that genuinely is something that keeps Physicians Formula afloat as a brand. Like, it's one of the few products in their line that has a cult following. So I don't really think that there's an excuse to not have a good shade range for this one. It took them a very long time to come out with a darker version of this bronzer, and even then, it's not really a darker version of this bronzer, so that's a problem. But you know what another problem is? This thing. I hate it so much. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I love making the thank you for coming to my TED Talk joke because I can also say it unironically and people don't know if I'm kidding or not. You know I will always defend her, but she's a problem. Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette, and more particularly my Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette because I own the original formula before they reformulated it. It's a lot of pigmentation, a lot of powdery kick-up. It takes a lot of patience to deal with. I do think that if you do have that patience sometimes, and sometimes I'm willing to sit down and really put a lot of work into a makeup look, sometimes I'm not. Like this morning, I was not. If you're willing to sit down and work with this one, I feel like the depth into pigmentation and the really just intense color payoff that you get from this makes it worth it to put in a little bit of extra effort to work with this palette. But it's like, it's not gonna be for everybody, and I also don't like the way that Anastasia handled the backlash that they got from this one. Essentially, their brand's response was like, y'all are just using it wrong and you don't have skills. I feel like a lot of people forgot about that. I feel like a lot of people forgot that that was how they responded to the criticism at first, instead of like immediately pulling the palette and reformulating. Essentially, the brand's response was like, y'all just suck at makeup, and then a bunch of ABH stans would go into people's like negative reviews into the comment sections and be like, you're just bad at makeup, that's why you couldn't get the palette to work for you. I don't think that people who didn't like this palette are bad at makeup. I just think it's not a palette for everybody and not a formula for everybody. And for me, like, I still have days with this one where I'll work with it and I'll be like, For example, Edge changes color on the eyes, so I really cannot get it to show up like this beautiful mustard yellow. It inevitably kind of sallows into a kind of greenish tone. All Star does darken quite a bit into brown if you don't pair it with the right things. Fudge is just annoying. If I'm going to go for a brown shade like this, I'm going to go for a more manageable brown shade. Because it's such a boring color, I don't feel like it's really worth the extra hassle of using. Can be a little bitch to work with, but I do really enjoy this palette a lot. But I always do like to give that caveat when I recommend this palette, because even though I love it with my entire heart, most people won't. Next is not really a particular product, but just like Too Faced as a brand. A lot of things with Too Faced have made me question whether or not I want to like buy from them. I haven't purchased anything from Too Faced in quite a long time. I would say the last thing I bought was the Natural Lust palette, which has been like maybe a year and a half ago. But I love a lot of their products, and I think I want to do a episode of That's Debatable about like whether or not you can separate the products from the brand owner or the art from the artist. For Too Faced in particular, I do struggle with that just because they are owned by a parent company, not necessarily Jared Blandino anymore. He's like the face of the brand, and I think he does a really poor job of being the public face of the brand. But technically Too Faced is part of a conglomerate of brands and is such a huge brand in general that you're not necessarily like directly lining Jared Blandino's pockets. But regardless of that, Too Faced's public image does make me question and reevaluate constantly my support and my love for their products. This Peach Perfect foundation is one of my favorites in my collection, and truly the only matte foundation I've ever liked besides the YSL All Hours. And then the final product I wanted to mention is, of course, the Drunk Elephant TLC Framboise Glycolic Serum. This is something that genuinely disgusts me to recommend because of how expensive it is, but it's truly one of the products that has changed my skin the most out of any skincare product I've ever used. So while I do think that the Good Molecules Overnight Exfoliating Treatment is a good dupe for it, I don't think that it can do exactly the same things that this one does. Because of the balance of the pH with the ingredients and how it's delivered to the skin, I feel like this is just one of the most effective formulations of this serum. But also recommending like a really expensive serum just makes me not feel great inside. So there we go. Alright guys, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. Like, what are some of your problematic faves, like makeup products that you really love but you know there's a little thing about them that makes them just kind of problématique. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Yeah.
Astronomical.
And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus meme. Love you.
Hey, somebody come get her, she dancing like a stripper. Hey, somebody come get her, she dancing like a stripper.